This preliminary finding overnight by a World Health Organization team that the coronavirus likely came from an animal source and not from a lab at Wuhan, being described as not surprising by Health Minister Greg Hunt this morning.
It's not surprising that there are no surprises. In essence, what we know is that it's likely to have come from the animal kingdom. That means it's what's called a zoonotic disease. That's been the strong advice from our medical advisors here in Australia.
As we know, it was Australian Foreign Affairs Minister Marise Payne who went out on a limb in a Sunday morning interview last year and called for this inquiry.
Well, we need to know the sorts of details that an independent review would identify for us about the genesis of the virus, about the approaches to dealing with it and addressing it, about the openness with which information was shared, about interaction with the World Health Organization, interaction with other international leaders. All of those sorts of things will need to be on the table.
Well, I have new detail on what revolved around this decision for Payne to go it alone on this public call, which led to bans in China on Australian wine, beef and barley. The ones who believed most in the lab theory were the US State Department, with Mike Pompeo pushing it along from that quarter. The Trump regime had made clear to the Australian government prior to that call by Marise Payne that they wanted an inquiry, but several Australian government sources have told me the US did not encourage Australia to call for it unilaterally. Australian officials had a view there was a small chance the virus leaked from the lab, but that this was unlikely. Even today, there are questions in the Australian government that you won't hear publicly as to whether the WHO team is able to reach a proper finding when they were chaperoned around by the Chinese authorities and there has been time for a trail to go cold. I understand in a discussion between the Prime Minister Scott Morrison, Health Minister Greg Hunt, Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton and Foreign Affairs Minister Marise Payne, around the time Payne did this interview in question, the PM weighed up the bilateral relationship with China but came to the conclusion that there had to be some accountability and he could not conduct foreign policy based on what China wanted, or he may as well run all foreign policy past Beijing. He wanted the inquiry in order to minimise the spread of such a virus happening again. So what does the Australian government hope to get from this inquiry now? What their hope is out of this inquiry is the establishment of a pandemic warning system for future pandemics, where countries would have a responsibility to close off their borders, report a pandemic and get outside help. COVID-19 has a kill rate of 1%. The MERS virus had a kill rate of 35%. So if a virus of that nature got out, we would be in a lot more trouble. Let's hope something comes out of this, given what it has cost some of our exporters in terms of the Australia-China relationship.